Sacred Circle will continue. Blessed be.
Good evening. Welcome back. Glad to see you're here. While the cookie still has a little bit of a hold of Cate, we're going to talk about a few other different Christmas traditions. Carlene, is there anything particular that you're practicing or familiar with or more exposed to than we are?
Well, I know in the Norse tradition, I have 3 cats. We have to explain. I have 3 cats in my house, so we have to do some rituals that involve the cats for Yule. The Norse definitely take care of their animals. Very much so. And they have a specific ritual at Yule just for cats, to honor the cats, to honor basically just the playfulness of the cat and the holiday. So basically what they make you do is you cast your circle, and in all essence you get something to play with the cat with. You sit there, and I had 3 cats this year, and I bought them a catnip bag, and for about an hour we played. And we played, and we played, and had the goddess candles and the god candles, and the whole thing going on with Freya and Odin and everybody else, and everybody had a ball. Another thing you have to do in that ritual is feed the cats. Physically, like give them, fish is usually the best. They really like fish. So we fed the fish. I mean, we had a ball. The cats just have a lot of fun. That's the biggest thing. They love to honor the cats at this time of year.
And one of the reasons that that's so is because cats are sacred to the goddess Freya, who is who is the prime goddess in the Norse religion, and she travels through the sky in a chariot, bringing the sun, and her chariot is pulled by 2 huge cats, and they are frequently depicted as being long-hair cats, kind of like Maine Coon cats or Norwegian water cats, and they are wonderful. They're just absolutely wonderful. So it's a good time to remember our animal friends too. Now I know, Eric, that you talked to someone and they gave you another holiday story. Now let's remember that although this is our time of year, a lot of people refer to this time of year as Christmas.
Well, what I understand, looking at the variety of traditions out there, just about everybody is celebrating something that deals with the new light or the return of the light. Whether we're celebrating the return of the light, whether the Christians are celebrating Christmas and the birth of Jesus and the light of the world that comes with the coming of the Prince of Peace. There's the Hanukkah tradition where in essence, it's the renewal of their faith that God did not forsake them, that God left them the light, or allowed the light to persist through. And from the news report, the recent news reports about things going on in the Middle East, it wasn't until now did I realize that Ramadan started at the crack of the new light of the moon.
Exactly. I didn't realize that either until the crisis started over there, and they
You
were
know,
talking about holding
and so many different traditions, yet we're all doing something very similar.
And we have the history behind the holiday, which includes Saturnalia. And Saturnalia is the Roman holiday that spanned approximately 2 weeks, which is a great way to celebrate the holiday. One day isn't enough. And they party, and they elect what is essentially a lord of misrule, usually a servant in the household, which was carried over. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Servant in the household got to rule the household for a day. That was one of the days that they celebrated. Another few of the days were sacred to the women, who got to party amongst themselves and tell all kinds of bawdy stories and drink themselves senseless and have a really good girlfriend blowout. So there's a lot of things that the Romans did at this time of year also. And in the Celtic calendar, as Eric mentioned before, today is the day without a tree. And it bridges the old year and the coming year with the light, which is something that we all talk about this time of year. We're talking about the holiday season. We're talking about also New Year's, which is celebrated in the Julian calendar as January 1st. Now you were given a story.
Yes, I was given a story that while having a Christian basis to it, or a theme behind it, I should say, I find it touches on a lot of magical stuff and a lot of symbolic stuff. It's called The Legend of the Spiders. and I take it you want me to read this.
Well, actually, just give us a brief.
Sure. If you ever wondered where tinsel came from, the story is about many Christmases ago in a little house in Germany where the house mother would allow all the animals in the house to come view the beautifully adorned tree, yet the one thing that she didn't allow were the spiders. She would constantly shoo them away. And the Christ child wanted everybody to adore the beauty of the tree and the beauty of it all and the season. So he allowed the spiders in, and basically what they did is they adored the tree simply by inspecting it, climbing all over it, and as they did, they spun their cobwebs. Now, knowing that the house mother and the children would be really upset on Christmas morning to see their tree covered with cobwebs, simply reached out, touched the tree, and all the cobwebs turned into shimmering silver strands.
And that's where tinsel comes from. A lot of the holiday stories this time of year that are frequently made up by folks to amuse their children and keep them busy at this time of year often reflect where something comes from. The interesting thing is that spiders, of course, to all of us who are Wiccan or pagan, are representative of knowledge and wisdom and secrets and magic. Web weaving and web spinning is a beautiful way to express the fact that you are either networking with other pagans and other folks, or you're creating magic. And spiders are very magical creatures. So this is a really beautiful story, even though it does have a Christian bent to it. But there's a lot of things about the holiday that the Christians have kind of appropriated because, let's face it, we give really good holidays. We really, really do. And there's a lot of things.
The Yule log.
Yeah.
The Yule log is also something that we celebrate the return of the light with the Yule log. The Yule log being burned is kind of getting rid of the old year business and lighting up the new year. There's a lot of other
Even the colors, red and green.
Red and green. And as we mentioned before, holly, all of the evergreens. For a very long time in a lot of Christian churches, evergreens were not allowed because they reflected too much the pagan background of the season. And I know one of the things that our producer Bill Carpenter and Frank and myself were discussing this evening was that there's an awful lot of folks out here who think that Christmas is the original holiday at this time of year, and we kind of gently, I know Frank and I kind of gently nudge our Christian friends and say, just remember, you got all this stuff from us because we started this.
It's an interesting concept with bringing back the light. With some of the camera shots you've probably been seeing tonight, you'll notice that there's an awful lot more flame on our table than usual. It's just our kind of way of welcoming back the light, and there are colors, all different color candles, and there's metallic candles and floating candles, and it's just our way to represent bringing back the light. It's really a nice way to do it.
Now, one of the things that Frank and I have had the opportunity to do in the past couple of solstices is go to a solstice chamber that's located in Putnam, New York, and we get up very, very, very early in the morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning, to be there for sunrise, and it's about a half-hour, 40-minute hike into the woods, and there is a stone chamber that some folks have discovered. They're not exactly sure who put it there. They're not exactly sure why it was put where it was put, but it's in Putnam County, New York. And at the moment of dawn, when the light comes up on the morning of solstice, the light hits the back of the chamber. And it's the only time of the year when that sunlight strikes the square center back of the chamber. And a lot of the historical chambers around the world function in this same way. Newgrange in Ireland functions the exact same way. There's a high window in Newgrange over the huge spiral cut entrance stone. And on the morning of winter solstice, the light shoots through that window, and it's the only time of the year that the light shoots through the window. So it's a wonderful, wonderful tradition that was started by very primitive people who wanted to remind the sun that it needed to come back because they were terrified and very worried that the only thing that they would be facing from this point on in the year would be a very cold winter. And that would be very difficult for them, and they would probably starve to death. So they wanted to encourage the light to come back very strong and as soon as it possibly could. And that is basically what this holiday has to do with. Are there any other traditions that
There's a funny Italian one.
Oh, yes.
I forget her name. There's a story of
Befana.
Stefana, thank you.
Befana.
Okay. The story of Befana goes along the three wise men that you hear going to see the Christ child stopped in Italy on their way and invited Befana along, but she said, no, I'm way too busy and I can't come along. So they went on and they saw the Christ child, and in Italy they don't have Santa per se, they have Befana, and she felt sorry for not going. So every year she's the one who leaves the little gifts under the tree for all the Italian children. All the Italian holy children is how they refer to them a lot of the time. And so therefore there is no Santa Claus over there. It's a female witch who rides around on her broom and hands out presents.
Sounds good to me.
Yes.
And speaking of Santa, because we have to speak of Santa this time of year, the tradition of Santa actually comes from the tradition of the Oak King and the Holly King. And Santa is actually the Holly King, who dies at this time of year and gives way to the Oak King to bring back the springtime, because the Oak King reigns during the spring and summer, and the Holly King reigns during the fall and winter. And so Santa's ride is kind of his passing the hat off to the Oak King for the spring and summer. So there are a lot of our traditions are incorporated. This is a very pagan holiday because it is. There are
just exchanging of gifts is a
the exchanging of gifts is a very pagan idea. What we have is the exchange of gifts to remind people not of the gifts that were given to the Christ child, as a lot of people think, but to remind people during the year that you have noticed what good they have done, and that they are friends, and that you care about each other. Also, the Christmas tree, our Christmas tree, or our Yule tree as we refer to it, is a very pagan holiday, and what you're doing is bringing in the greenery into your house so that you're bringing in life and vitality and all that the evergreens represent. As you can see from our table, we have my mistletoe. Never leave home without it. We have holly and pine cones in our basket. If you got a chance during one of our shots to see the poinsettia, which is also evergreen and blooming, because it's actually a tropical plant from Mexico. And we also have our pine bough down below to remind us that there is always life and there is always vitality. A lot of times we have to go looking for it, but it's there. I also wanted to talk about how you celebrate Yule and how you celebrate Yule as opposed to what Frank and I do. So if you have some ideas about any special traditions that you had when you were growing up, or anything special that you do now.
Well, growing up, I grew up with my parents who are not pagan, but we did the whole Christmas tree, so it kind of flowed very nicely into what I do now for the most part. Specifically for Yule for me, I do not set up an altar ahead of time. On the morning of Yule is the day that I celebrate and set up my altar to honor everything. I set it up with all the greenery and all the candles and the goddess figure and the god. Invite all the cats. Me being single and solitary at the moment, it was actually a very quiet time for me. Had the music playing in the background, and all the cats were sitting around the altar this year. Not a one of them spoke up or anything. And it was a very quiet time to remember the past years that have gone by and good things like that.
Terrific. I think we're about to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be taking some phone calls, and we'll be talking a little bit more about Eric's holiday traditions.
Oh.
And we'll tell you a little bit about what we do too. So please stay tuned and listen to our announcements that are coming up. We'll be right back with a lot more talk and a lot more interesting ideas for you. Please stay with us.
Is buying a core values apple going to change the world? A little.
We're
farmers, and we grow real healthy apples. We take good care of the trees, the land, and especially the apples.
I picked this apple.
I want to tell you, apple's been around a long time.
I'm Meryl Streep. We founded Mothers and Others to help create healthier choices for our families and our planet. Bring good farming home. Pick core values. Help yourself.
When I grow up, I want to be an archaeologist. When I grow up, I want to be a computer programmer.
When I grow up, I want to be a referee.
When I grow up, I want to be a rapper. Cub Scouts will help me be a rapper by learning about music.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Cub Scouts.
Cub Scouts. Cub Scouts. Cub Scouts. Cub Scouts, a great place to be.
Who told you?
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 About birth control being more than just
the pill.
Or which condoms?
Or which condoms are safe?
Where can I get them?
Where can I get them without getting? They look at you like.
What do you need?
If I need a pregnancy test, I know it will be confidential. And I can afford it.
Who told you?
Who told you?
Who told you?
Who told you? Who told you?
For the center nearest you, call 1-800-230-PLAN.
Grandparents!